question for you, and on a different line of thought. The Supreme Court today, in some way, wrapped a lot of banks on the knuckles for creating what it called a situation of panic among customers by sending out scary messages saying your bank accounts will be frozen if you don't link your Aadhar card. Would you believe that that is actually the job of the RBI? Yes. If banks were perhaps overstepping or miscommunicating, isn't it the regulator's job to stop them from doing that? Has the RBI in some way abdicated its job or its position? And we now have to have the Supreme Court put both the government and the banking and the telecom industry on the spot in court and ask them how such a situation of panic was created.
Well, whether the Reserve Bank can order the banks, they can certainly order them on how much reserves to keep and how much reserves to put out. Those things, whether on these matters of technicalities of technology infusion, I don't know whether the Reserve Bank has any role to play. This has to be
also technically a customer protector
in the executive area.
Customer protection is also the Reserve Bank's responsibility.
They are technically on the question of technological. I don't know. I mean, you have asked me this question. I really don't know whether the Reserve Bank can do anything more than just sort of advisory. But this is actually a technological question, and I don't think the Reserve Bank has much say in this. This is what I feel. But I really don't know for sure. But I would know from whatever I know in the past in dealing with the Reserve Bank that this is basically the Reserve Bank is restricted to the financial issues.
Right. And Mr. Swamy, do you believe now that we have this clear message from the Supreme Court that we have to wait until March before any linking is done, that no coercive action needs to be taken on anyone who doesn't link until the 31st of March bank account and Aadhar, and no situation of panic has been created? Will the government perhaps also, given your letter to the Prime Minister, introspect now or slow down, step back, reconsider, the rush with which they were going after this Aadhar linkage?
Well, the Supreme Court has got a constitutional bench going to this question on the privacy issue. And I would say, judging by past judgments, they should strike down the Aadhar, in fact. I would think that's what's going to happen. But our government has been responsive in the past. You see, whether you whatever you may say about taking it out of shape or driving out of shape, they have made a number of adjustments on GST. In the beginning, they were saying nothing of the kind. One tax, one place.
But Mr. Swamy, forgive me for interrupting you.
Because they have to make these adjustments.
I apologize, but I just want to. You just said the Supreme Court is likely to strike down Aadhar. So you don't believe that this is a system that has flaws that can be fixed? You believe the entire thing needs to be struck down altogether?
On the question of privacy, the Supreme Court won't strike it down because it's technologically infeasible. But my view is that, based on the arguments I've seen and the briefs I've seen, that the privacy question is a very special question, and the Supreme Courts all over the world have been very particular about it. And the present design of the system and the feedback they're getting from the public, as they today revealed, they have said very flatly, we also have sources, we also know what is going on. I think the government should take a call, probably call the Attorney General and ask him what is the trend, and see whether this could be put off to something after the next general election of Lok Sabha.
So put off Aadhar entirely until the next general elections of Lok Sabha. My other question to you is, and you did say, of course, that there are a lot of pleas that the Supreme Court is now hearing. We also understand the bank officers, the All India Bank Officers Association has approached, has moved the court as well, saying that they do not want to be mandated to, for enrollment. They don't want to have to be the ones actually mandating or helping their customers do the linkage, because they believe that that is not a banker's job. They're not adequately trained, and they fundamentally believe it's unconstitutional to freeze anyone's account if they haven't made this linkage. Do you believe in, they're right? Do you think that banks should not be asked to do this?
Well, I already told you that I think that the Reserve Bank doesn't have much of a role to play in this. They are only on financial matters. Banks are also custodians of your finances. And to be asked to do policing work, this is essentially policing work. That is something which the banks and the bureaucracy of the banks and the unions of the banks, they have to decide whether they want to take it on or not. I am only being concerned with this Aadhar on the question of privacy. And I think that the design of the system is such that privacy has been sent for a toss. And therefore, I am urging my government. After all, if the government tomorrow decides that no, and they are going to go ahead, there's nothing I can do. Like in GST, I warned them about it. I brought the notice, the GST and shortcomings, but they went ahead with it. So as a party man, I go along. But I have every right to forewarn, and I do think that this is a system for which we are not yet ready. We should do it after the elections.
Dr. Swamy, what happens then? Let's assume, like you said, Aadhar is struck down by the Supreme Court. What happens then to all of the data that has already been collected? All of those people who've already linked bank accounts and PAN cards and tax returns and phone numbers to the Aadhar, they can't get the data back. You can't unlink it. What do we do with the data then?
The PM should set up a special task force of very bright people. We got lots of bright people. I can give him some names too, and tell them how to rephase the thing and how to wind down what has already been going in full speed. I think these are things which what is called as crisis management. It will be a crisis, but it has to be managed.
All right, Dr. Swamy, many thanks for joining us here on Mirror Now. We appreciate your time and your insights for our viewers. Dr. Subramanian Swamy, the Member of Parliament, telling us that he believes that Aadhar is a national security risk. He believes that the government is currently being misled on the security matter by Mr. Nandan Nilekani. He believes that the Prime Minister's office needs to include people with the expertise who will be able to give the Prime Minister the right picture and the right advice when it comes to Aadhar. And he believes that on the matter of privacy, on the question of privacy, it has to be struck down altogether. And he recommends the Prime Minister set up a special task force to wind down Aadhar entirely so that it doesn't cause us any sort of national security risk. Dr. Swamy is known for making sort of bombastic statements to the media, but this one was especially bombastic, where he said that it ought to be struck down altogether. So unlike other party members, he's not saying it's a flawed system and the flaws can be fixed as we go along, which is the stand right now on GST and Aadhar. He's saying, shut it down, wind it down completely.
Which is what he's saying, and which is what he expects the Supreme Court to do as well. But that's something we'll have to wait and watch, because there are a whole lot of people out there who've actually gone ahead, got their Aadhar done, and then gone ahead and linked their Aadhar with their bank accounts, with their phone numbers, with a whole lot of other services that they are accessing. And that is going to create an even bigger problem if this were to be struck down. Thank you for watching. This is a wrap on the news. But do stay tuned to Mirror Now. We'll get you more news and updates.